lot of different reasons why people start companies. And I've come to realize that I have to really understand and actually feel that pain point. And it becomes that deep empathy that is that drive for me to push down any walls to kind of come up with that solution. And so it comes from a very deep place. And what really solidified it for me was when I was an entrepreneur in residence at a venture capital firm. And so I had a whole year to explore all these different ideas, and it was really free form. And so I went through that academic and analytical exercise of what's a good business and what would be thriving and what's needed. And it was very much in my head. And what I realized was that, when it comes, of my free time or at night, like I wasn't driven to, be obsessed with the end user or the problem where I had to solve it. And so for me, it's a very personal mission that I experience at some point in my life that I then realize other people are experiencing, and that gets me to really create that solution. So my mom was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and she had it for about 7.5 years. Mm-hmm. And when they came back the third time, her body and she had nothing else to give. And my dad was completely burnt out. And so they ended up moving from New Jersey to Boston in with me and my family. I have 3 kids, and I was always a working mom, but it was the first time where I quit my job to become her full-time caregiver. And so I was thrust into that position of just navigating all of her medical care. I was performing all the nursing duties. I was pumping her stomach several times a day. I was feeding her and bathing her and eventually carrying her. And she eventually passed away in my home during hospice in 2017. And it was the hardest and loneliest time in my life. And I think when I really think about it, I didn't know how to get support. I didn't know what existed. I was too exhausted to do research and search for things. And so in my deep grief, I was so frustrated more than anything. And I was probably part of, the grief that it was anger, but I was frustrated because having been an entrepreneur in technology, I knew that there could be a solution. I knew that it was possible. We could build it. And I have always reached people in individual home as a direct-to-consumer entrepreneur. So I knew that we could reach them and engage them. So knowing that it was possible and seeing how underdeveloped those solutions were, I said, we have to do something about it. And so I connected with my co-founder, Stephen Lee, and we just started that whole process of really digging into it. It really starts with really understanding and defining the problem. And so we say 1 out of 7 people in the US alone are diagnosed with a chronic illness or condition where they become reliant on a caregiver, right? So we're talking about stroke, Alzheimer's, cancer, diabetes. And when we often think about these conditions, we tend to focus on the medication, the surgery, what's happening in the hospital. But over 90% of the actual time being cared for happens in the home, not in the hospital. And they're typically cared for by family caregivers who are unsupported, unpaid, and untrained. And so there are 43.5 million family caregivers in the US alone. They do 24.4 hours of caregiving per week, and that's typically on top of full-time jobs. And if you added up all the hours of caregiving, it would equate to $470 billion worth of care. And so our entire healthcare system and society would absolutely collapse without family caregivers. But this is our aha moment. So our aha moment was when we dug into it, we realized that there are thousands of resources and services that already exist. They are out there, but it's really hard to connect them. It's highly fragmented. It's not even searchable. People don't even know what to search for. And it's not curated in a very user-friendly way to empower that layman caregiver in the home who is super exhausted. And so that's what we do. Ionicare is one platform that's a personalized navigator. We aggregate the thousands of resources, and then we curate the best 3 to 4 matches based on your income, your location, the condition you're caring for. And so it becomes a very curated experience to say, there's help out there, and we're here to connect you to that.